participating. I'm joining you today as Joanne Galloway, the Executive Director for Michigan Country. This is a Michigan Country project that we're working on. Michigan Country was founded in late 2023, stalled as we went through some adjustments with the previous organization that we were connected with, and really got up and running in September of 2024. So we're in the process currently of putting together our 2 to 4 year strategic plan at this time for like 25 running through 28. Michigan Country's mission is bringing people together, and we kept that really general. We do work on bringing people together in targeted rural areas of Michigan. Our main project that we did in 2024 was called the Anatomy of an Election Roadshow, where we worked in Berry County, Mackinac County, Sheboygan County, and a little bit in the Clinton and Ingham County in the rural areas, bringing people good election information that they could count on and helping people to understand how our elections are secure. So anyway, one of the projects that we're working on going forward is a storytelling project and an opportunity to lift up stories that will inspire others, stories that might help our elected officials to understand the importance of the policies that they're working on and how it affects people's daily lives. And Amy and I have been talking about this project for 6 to 9 months now, and we're excited to have this opportunity to talk with you, Cheryl and Kimberly, and tell the story of how you two came together to work together and put together a rally that was really meaningful for 700 plus people who gathered at the Capitol recently. And the reason that we thought that was important is because we think that'll be an inspiration to others who might find themselves in similar situations and empower them and inspire them to do something. So hopefully you both had the opportunity to see the stories that we do have up on the Michigan Country website. Michigan Country is a 501c3 nonprofit, which from a legal standpoint means we kind of keep ourselves out of like real political stuff. Like we're not allowed to endorse candidates. We're not allowed to directly advocate for bills that have been introduced. And also our work is really centered around bringing people together to get things done. And so that really part of that work is treating everyone respectfully, really working to understand like where people are coming from. So with that, I'll be turning things over to Amy.
Okay, so my name is Amy Kelso. I am working with Joanne for Michigan Country, doing stories about people who are out there doing things, which is, of course, why we're here today. So we are talking today with Cheryl and Kimberly, who arranged a rally for veterans. And I'm not going to tell too much about it because that's going to be your story. So, but before we get into all of that, let me just start with kind of general information. So we'll take turns. I guess we'll start with Cheryl. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why this was an important thing for you to do. So.
Well, where to begin? I have been a civil rights activist for something like 30 or 40 years now. I had the good fortune to be born a lesbian, and that meant that there were some things that needed some attention around our politics and legal environment. And that's probably how I got my start in getting involved with organizing and community organizing. And this particular event fell in the middle of a long line of events happening after the last election. And I've been also fortunate in the course of this to get connected to a lot of different people who are doing organizing and are getting people together like Michigan Country's doing. Because of that unique positioning, I think Kimberly found me when she decided she was going to do this, or I found you in the midst of you doing it, one of the way or the other. No. But yeah, that's how I got to the table. Oh, I should add that as of November, the more recent thing that I've done here is my partner and I founded an organization called Crowded Table Coalition, and similar to Michigan Country, it's part of our goal to get people together and give them something to do, but not similar. We are a C3 and a C4, and we are willing to get our hands dirty in the political mess, as well as doing education. And my favorite recent saying was, we have left the purity of the sidelines for the chaos of the organizing, and so we're in it.
So Kimberly, same thing. Tell us about yourself and how you got involved with this.
Well, my name is Kimberly Bogan, and I am a registered nurse in the Lansing community. I work in an emergency room right here in town. And so I am around a lot of the people that these different policy changes is affecting. I see how it affects our community. I have not been in the political arena or organizing or anything like that until our recent election. And seeing what was coming down the pipeline, I knew that I couldn't stay silent about this. I have grandchildren that are biracial. I have many family members and friends that are in the LGBTQ plus community, and I'm a woman, and I knew that I couldn't stay quiet. And so I wanted to get involved, and I knew this was something just told me this was the time that the voice that I have been given was needed out there. So I just kind of jumped in and I joined all these different organizations, the 50501, I Resist, the Crowded Table Coalition. I've kind of been in there with all of them and had the opportunity to meet a variety of different people and see what's going on. And everything's just been kind of falling into place from there. I don't have any kind of nonprofit organization or anything like that at this point. I am like fresh grassroots kind of person.
So I like the fact you brought up the nursing. You see the people who are affected by things a lot. I can imagine that.
Yes, absolutely. And it doesn't matter what group of people it is. And I have, like I said before, I have grandchildren that are biracial. I have many family members and friends that are of the LGBTQ plus community. And it's kind of something that's really affecting me personally and my family. And so I feel like this is the time. I mean, there's no better time now than really to step forward, right, and make this heard. And
Exactly.
that is exactly what I'm trying to do at this point.
So let me ask, well, I'll ask each of you in turn. So, Kimberly, do you have any veterans in your family, or is there any particular reason why this rally was the one that got your attention?
Actually, that is kind of a funny story because I do have a cousin that has been deployed. I believe he was in Iraq or Afghanistan, like during that era. As far as like father, grandfather, like big military presence, no, that would basically be it right there. And I have been a part of some of the previous rallies that we've done. I've given speeches there. And actually, I was at this point going to sit this one out. I was just going to go as a member of the crowd and just lend my hand at any little things that they wanted me to do. I was going to offer, since I am a trauma nurse, to be there with a medic pack if there's any injuries in the crowd. And that was the only reason. I'm trying to pace myself and keep my sanity here and get my rest and self-care when I need to. I knew that there's a lot of veterans out there. There's a lot of people that it's close to a home with them. They have a lot of veterans in their family. So, yeah, I was just going to be just a member of the crowd and just help out when I could. And when I came, I think it was like the day before, I kind of gotten into each one of the groups and was just like, hey, is there anything that we need? Do you want me to take a medic pack? What? That's when I started to begin to realize that nobody had actually organized anything. Or, so I just kept sticking my nose into it and trying to figure out, has the permit been pulled? Because I had heard you need a permit and things like that. And that's when I realized that. And I thought, oh boy, I know that there's going to be people that are going to show up at this rally. And what does that say if there's nobody there that organized it? There's no sound equipment. There's nobody there to give the speeches. And these are our veterans. And I thought, we can't let that happen. And then my next thought went to, how will this affect future protests and rallies that we want to organize? People won't show up. They'll be just like, that one was kind of a dud. Nobody was there. So that's when I just jumped in and tried to figure out what it is that I needed to do. I've showed up at rallies and I've given speeches, but I've never organized one or anything like that. So I was really reaching out to a lot of different people, just asking for help from anyone. And that's when Cheryl just like showed up with that light around her, angel wings. I had told Joanne before, I said, I don't have sound equipment. I'm not a tech person or anything. I was ready to go buy a karaoke machine just so that I had a microphone and some kind of sound system to project my voice out to the crowd. But she actually came in and had that equipment, and it was like it just kind of all fit together. There was a reason why I have found these different organizations that I'm in. Because that's where I found her. She stepped right up and jumped right in, and the rest kind of just happened from there.
So, Cheryl, tell us about how you got involved. Tell us your side of the story.
So I was with Kimberly. This was about probably the eighth event that I've done in the last 2 months of rallies, and I was actually going to sit this one out. I do have because I have other things that were also being planned, but I felt exactly the same way as Kimberly, that people are going to show up for this. And it's important that there's a program or the ability to have some sort of program for them to not just come and look at each other for 3 or 4 hours on the Capitol lawn. And when Kimberly took the initiative to go ahead and pull the permit and started putting it out there in the universe that, hey, somebody's got to organize this thing, I was like, dang, I guess I need to get involved after all. I do have an uncle who did 2 terms in Vietnam, and a very close friend who was also a Vietnam vet. And I was ironically just coming back from visiting with that very uncle, and so I thought it was important to do. I've managed to collect a porta party. I have sound equipment, and I have Marshall vests, and I have clipboards, and really that's that and a megaphone, and you've got an event. And also had the experience at this event of, because it was kind of last minute, Kimberly pulled a couple of speakers. I volunteered to be a speaker, but we decided to just go ahead and open the mic and let folks say what they wanted to say. And it was a very powerful experience. I had that happen at another event prior that was the same kind of thing. There was going to be an event, and people put it out on the socials that it was happening, but nobody was organizing it. And at that event, we opened the mic, and we got a wide variety of personal experiences and stories that really made for not only a really good program for everybody who was in attendance there, because it really touched on a lot of different things that as an organizer I might not have thought of to bring somebody to the table about, but it also, I think, helped people overcome their fears and empower people to actually use their voice, which is, public speaking is one of the number one fears that everyone has. Showing up at these events right now in this current climate, people are understandably afraid. Our own president has talked about being willing to cool free speech. All of this to say that people are afraid when they come and actually show up just to be there, and to not only just show up and be there, but to actually have a voice and have the ability to speak their truth. Is extremely powerful and empowering. And I think in this environment, we need that. We need people to understand they can stand up, they can say what they believe, and they will be supported in doing so. I just think that's critical. And this gave us an opportunity to do that. So I'm very happy to have dragged all my equipment out and set them up on the Capitol steps and made it possible for this to be a program, not just a bunch of people gathering around on the lawn looking at each other.
Yeah.
People were really lining up to get up there and tell their stories. And that was pretty incredible. And we also had, I wanted to mention, the Chippewa Indian tribe from Saginaw
Yeah.
that had
Yeah.
showed up. They were in full garb. It was very beautiful. We took some pictures with that. They got up and gave a speech. It was very inspirational. And yeah, like she said, a lot of the stories, I mean, it was a great human interest piece. Definitely. There was so many
Yeah.
powerful stories, and we actually saw a lot of emotion from people when they were up there and when they were coming down, the tears that were coming down their face, and the interaction from the veterans that were out and the veteran families that were out in the crowd and to the speakers that were coming up was really quite powerful. And it was just a great thing to see. I had no idea how much I was actually going to get out of this when I kind of stumbled upon it. So it was a good experience.
That's amazing. I just want to know, like, before you decided to open up the microphone, were you a little bit nervous about that? Because I think I would have been like, oh, I don't know.
I think from a few of the other rallies that I had given speeches at, they did kind of open it up at the end for some people to come up and give their stories or tell their stories. And I remember a few of them that I spoke to after they had done that, and they were incredibly thankful for being able to do that, and said they really felt empowered when they came down from telling their side of the story. They didn't have like any written speech or anything when they went up there. They just went up and spoke from the heart. So knowing that we had that and that we had like 3 hours to fill, I wrote my speech the night before in the hospital emergency room because I had gotten injured in that few hour period, that we needed to have other people speak. So we were just like, yeah, let's open it up. These people, they're the reason why we're here, for them. So we need to hear their stories and see how this is impacting them, and so that other people can hear that and feel that as well.
It was the President's Day event that was the first time where It had been called, it had been canceled. There was a text that went out that it was canceled because the weather was going to be minus 12 degrees. The 50501 was going to organize it, but they had just finished doing a literally brute forcing in this February 5th rally and brand new group of people. They got together 2 days before that and turned it into an event. And they were kind of exhausted and just collecting themselves for what to do next. Started to organize President's Day event and then realized it's going to be really cold. We don't know if we can keep people safe. We don't know if we have the energy to do another event. And so they kind of backed out of it. But then people still were coming and we knew it. So my resist showed up and said, we'll organize it. Let's make it happen. And so I got involved with them and I brought the sound equipment for that one. And that was the first time that we opened the mic like that, where it was literally just open the faucet and let it flow. And, there was some concern. And in each of the events, frankly, there were speakers who said something that it was like, I know one of the veterans was like, I'm ready to fight. And I'm like, okay, but not right now. Can we not call to arms at our event?
Other ways to
But
fight besides physically.
yes, exactly. But having had that experience, it definitely diluted some of the fear about opening the mic like that. Also, the potential very much existed that somebody who was, going to come up and spew hate from the other side of the political divide could have stepped up and used our mic too. And then what would we do about that? And we didn't have that happen. You always have the possibility of having something like that where it's somebody who's going to say, hateful things, or it's somebody who's going to go on and on and on and not get out of the way. And so it is a risk, but boy, the reward
Oh
was
yeah.
so worth that risk because I watched those people. I'm gonna sorry, I'm getting a little emotional about it right now because they came up and they were shaking. And Joanne knows she came up as support for somebody who wanted to speak
Yeah.
but didn't feel comfortable being up there themselves. And seeing those people find their voice and find their courage and do that was so meaningful and so powerful that it was worth having a few randos. It was
Yep.
okay.
Oh, perfect.
I have a question. I'm wondering how Kimberly, as a community member, knew that there was a veterans rally scheduled. Kimberly, maybe you could elaborate on that just a little bit.
505. I'm not exactly sure where I saw the first graphic for the Veterans Day, but I do remember getting that from one of them, and then I started putting it out, because that's how the other ones have kind of been. They just say, we're having this in Washington, D.C., and at all 50 capitals. So I just kind of figured, oh, well, somebody's working on it, they're organizing it. And so I started putting it out to, my family, friends, and my followers so that they knew about it. And did just before that here, and I think I was telling you about that whoever had organized it, it was apparently supposed to be just a Washington D.C. thing. I'm not to don't mark my words on it, but that's kind of what I had
That's
gotten.
correct.
And somebody had picked up the ball and just said all 50 states, right? Like the other ones have basically been. And then somebody must have made a graphic and kind of put it out there, and it just kind of morphed into its own thing from there. And yeah, it just seems like then everything just started falling into place after that. So knowing that I had kind of put it out there and told everybody to come too, I felt like I had that responsibility as well to make sure that something, did happen. But I can't tell you exactly how or who actually started all that to begin with, but we made it happen. You put an idea out there, it all starts with an idea, right? It doesn't necessarily
Yep.
mean the person that had the idea is the one that's going to, take about the action to make sure it comes to fruition.
I
Yeah,
mean, I
that's really
think I think it's really great that you jumped in, right? So you had reached out to me, and I think it started with, I know I just met you, and we had only just met online. And then she's next thing I know, she's reaching out and saying, I know we just met, but I found out that there wasn't a permit pulled, and I pulled one. Would you help? And I had things like I was working on that day, and I had somewhere else even that I needed to be. But I was happy to provide her with another resource that I knew of. I'd been at rallies and I had seen this Cheryl, right up there, handling the run of show and handling the sound system and that kind of stuff. I love that what was foremost for Kimberly in her mind, and maybe Cheryl also then, that they immediately thought of others and thought of people that might have seen it promoted, and people that were planning to come and wanted there to be something organized for those people. And then
Mhm.
also, Cheryl, you will have an interesting perspective on this. During the rally, you asked for a show of hands as to how many people are from outside the Lansing area. And
Yeah.
I was at the bottom of the steps. It looked to me like most of the people raised their hand. But Cheryl, I've been
Yeah.
wanting to ask you because you were up on the steps. What did that look like when you asked
Oh
that?
yeah. It was at least 75% of the
Wow.
people said they were from outside of Lansing. And in fact, like I said, I've done a number of these events and I've showed up an hour early to get things set up. This was the first time when I got there were already 30 people there that had arrived on their veteran sign. They had a couple of wheelchair users. And I was like, Kimberly, they're here. And she's coming from the emergency room. I assigned some guard duty to a couple veterans. They were already there and they just kept coming starting an hour early.
Wow.
And they definitely were coming in from all over the state. So I'm really grateful that we did something that they didn't drive all that way or arrange a bus to come in and not have anything, to see except for each other, which would have been good too. But, if you're standing around in a crowd and there's no amplification and no chance to hear a program or say something, it really has an exponentially lower impact than what happened instead.
Yeah, because it
Yeah,
you don't bond together if you're not communicating together. Yeah.
exactly.
I actually have a story about, somebody who had traveled there. And when I was
Yeah.
reaching out to people for help, literally I was reaching out to everybody. I didn't care if I knew them or not. I had seen a gentleman had put out a TikTok that he was going to be at the Veterans Day march at the Capitol on that day and for everybody to come and everything. And I thought, oh, well, maybe this guy might know something. So I reached out to him. And actually, it ended up being an older gentleman that was from Flint, and he was a veteran, and he's partially blind, and he rode a bus from Flint to the Capitol. And I had gotten a hold of him, and he was just like, oh no, I'm not in with all that, but I'm going to be there. And then I was just like, hey, do you want to speak? And he got up and actually gave a speech. And I mean, it was just really moving because, just kind of when you reach out to people, even if you don't know them, it's surprising the connections that you can make with people, and the bonds that you can make immediately. And this gentleman who was blind, carrying a walking stick, um, got himself from Flint, on a bus, came to the Capitol, gave a speech, and it was great to see that. And I do remember specifically when Cheryl did ask that, and I remember thinking I was shocked that the amount of people that raised their hand that were from out of town, and I thought, this is why we did this. This wasn't just a
Yeah.
few people coming from the coffee shop down the road because they saw, something going on. This was people purposefully spent money, made signs, they made that commitment to come. And so we had to make sure that it happened. It all just came together.
Well, I really appreciate that you made it happen. I think just listening to Joanne saying, well, I couldn't because I had other commitments, and you talking about how important it is to help when you can and also balance that, so we're not stretching ourselves too thin, but also when there's the opportunity, knowing, okay, somebody's got to do it. I guess I'm the somebody. Let me step up and do what needs to be done. So I think that's important. And I appreciate that you guys stood up.
In her defense, it literally was like probably 16 hours before the actual
Yeah,
rally. So
the
to
day
come in and
before.
ask somebody, hey, what are you doing? Like, we're all busy every day. We have things planned out for weeks. You know, it didn't even phase me when, she was just like, I have other commitment. That's great. She pointed me in another direction. She gave me some resources. And that's all I was looking for, is just things to grab onto to kind of help me pull this together and make sure that it happened. So I think we all kind of came together and we gave what was needed at the time.
It's all about that community, and
Yep.
everybody can give what they can give at that time, and it all works out, which is just kind of amazing.
Yeah.
I think the takeaways on this is personal empowerment 100%, whether it's because you showed up and got up on the stage or you decided there's going to be an event here and somebody should do something to make it actual happen, and you start to put that energy out into the universe, and it does come back. It does manifest some really amazing things. And collaboration would be the second one, is reaching out to the network and finding help and being willing to trust that it's somebody you don't know very well, but their heart seems to be in the right place. Let's work together. Let's not lead with fear. Let's lead with the assumption that we're on the same team. And really, the third thing that until this call didn't really land all the way for me, but how disappointing would it have been for all these veterans who showed up from around the state to find out not only are their services being cut, not only are they not being respected as individuals who have made the ultimate commitment to try to be a patriot and fight for our country and have nobody there for them. What an
Mhm.
awful, awful thing that would have been. And I'm so glad, Kimberly, that you stepped up and said somebody's got to do something and made something happen there so that it was a good experience for everybody.
Yeah.
Your curiosity really paid off, Kimberly. Thank goodness you were curious to find
Yeah,
out if a permit had been
I
pulled and
know.
if things had been put together. That's really amazing. So, yeah.
I wouldn't even have known that you needed to have a permit for this, or I just heard the phrase and I thought, oh, and I was like, where do I pull the permit? And so I got on, AI. I was like, how do I pull a permit in Lansing, Michigan to speak at the Capitol? I was doing all this stuff to try to figure it out. And yeah, it kind of almost is like a blur a little bit that it even happened, but it's a good day. The weather was pretty nice, and I couldn't have asked for a better turnout for that as well.
Kimberly and Cheryl, I really appreciate you taking the time not only to host the rally, but
Yeah.
to, talk with Amy and I, and take the time to share your experience. I think that the reason it was important to Michigan Country to ask if you'd be willing to share your story is I think, it just has the opportunity to really inspire and empower other people who may find themselves in a situation like I mentioned. Sometimes people observe, like, wait, no one's doing XYZ, right? And you're showing them how then step right in and get it done, right? So
Mhm.
that was
Yeah.
your story is just an excellent example of that. And I'm really looking forward to being able to share it with other people in the community. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you for all the amazing work you're doing with Michigan Country. I think that your goals and aspirations are laudable, and appreciate the deep well of experience that you're bringing to that as well. So thank you for connecting with us.
Absolutely. That's what we're all about, bringing people together.